Senator Kennedy is a bad senator. We don't like him. The Supreme Court struck down a $23,420 fee for a permit to build. You worked for Governor Bevin?
Yes, Senator.
You were his lawyer?
I was one of the lawyers in the office, Senator.
Okay. Governor Bevin issued some controversial pardons, is that right?
He did, Senator.
The FBI investigated those pardons, did it not?
Yes, Senator, that's right.
Did the FBI file charges against Governor Bevin?
My understanding is they did not, Senator.
Okay. Did you advise Governor Bevin on any of those controversial pardons?
The only controversial pardon that that I advised him on was one for Mr. Irvin Edge, and I recommended that Mr. Edge not be pardoned.
And was he pardoned?
My understanding from reading news articles is that he was pardoned.
The governor didn't take your advice?
Apparently not, Senator.
Okay. But you didn't have anything to do with any of the other controversial pardons?
No, Senator.
Okay. If the New York Times, Mr. Meredith, published an editorial, let's suppose it said, Senator Kennedy is a bad senator. We don't like him. We think he's an ignorant slut. And I called the New York Times and I said, okay, I want to write a letter to the editor replying. Can the New York Times tell me no?
I believe that they could tell you no, Senator.
Well, what if I said, if they told me no, I said, okay, I want to buy a full-page ad that says John Kennedy's a good senator. He is not an ignorant slut. And they said no. Can they do that?
I think the First Amendment would allow them to exercise editorial discretion and control over the types of ads they want to sell.
You think it's purely a First Amendment case?
There could be. I mean, I think there are potentially other laws that could govern how they make their decisions to sell ads. But I think if they're making a decision about whether you can buy an ad that says Senator Kennedy's a good senator, I think they've. I think the First Amendment would allow them to exercise.
Suppose I'm running for re-election after this editorial, and I go to my local television station and I say I want to run a political ad, and they say no. The New York Times says you're an ignorant slut. We're not going to run your ad. Can they do that?
I think that's governed. That's governed by different laws pertaining to the airwaves, which are governed by federal statutes.
There's only one Constitution.
That's right.
How can a news organization deny me the right to reply to an editorial that denigrates me, but yet I have a right to run a television ad that says the New York Times is wrong?
I think as in order to have permission to use the airwaves, I think federal law requires TV stations to give equal time or equal opportunity to buy ads.
Why is that constitutional?
Well, it's constitutional because my understanding, at least, is that the federal government controls. The airwaves essentially are federal property that the federal government can regulate and authorize the use of.
Yeah, but the federal government has to abide by the First Amendment, doesn't it?
It does.
I don't know. Explain to me how the New York Times can say no to me wanting a right of reply, but a TV station can't prohibit me from replying.
Senator, my understanding of the law is that the airwaves would be a public resource that the federal government regulates.
You think they're a common carrier?
I don't know the law on this specifically, Senator. I don't know that the common carrier analysis would apply there. Perhaps it would. I don't know.
Suppose I have my cell phone service with AT&T, and I call AT&T. And I say, I want to expand my cell phone service. And they say, nope. We read that New York Times article. You can't do it. Can AT&T turn me down?
I think theoretically they probably could.
No, how? Why? What basis?
Well, I take that back. You're right. They probably can't because it's the same thing.
Why?
They're using the airwaves as well.
They're a common carrier, right?
I think that analysis probably applies there. That's right.
Okay. Mr. Mercer, can Congress pass a law that says cities are no longer able to participate in zoning? We're going to take it over at the federal level because we don't have enough houses. Would that be constitutional?
Senator Kennedy, I don't believe it would be.
Why
I
not?
believe that's the sort of thing that the Constitution has, not given Congress the authority under Article 1 to do that. And in fact,
Why not? On what basis?
in our system of federalism, those things that are not set forth in the Constitution are reserved to the state. And zoning is one of those quintessential public health, safety, welfare matters that we reserve to local government to resolve. And so I don't believe it would be permissible for this body to attempt to codify something in that
Okay,
regard.
so local government would win in that instance.
That is my understanding.
Okay,
Senator.
suppose local government came back and said, not only now that we've won and we have jurisdiction over our own zoning and our own housing laws. If you want to build a new house in our city, the permit is now $50,000. Can they do that?
Senator, essentially, I think the same analysis applies. I think that the local government would have the ability to establish that, and I don't think Congress could overrule it, and I think they would have the inherent authority to do so.
Why isn't that a taking under the United States Constitution and the Fifth Amendment?
Senator, that would be a whole different analysis, but I don't believe.
Same analysis. We just established they have the right to zone as they wish, and so and to regulate local housing. They're doing it. They're saying $50,000 to get a building permit. You're telling me that's constitutional?
Senator, I believe it would be. I think that they could establish that they need, in order to engage in the permitting process and go through what they need to do as a local government. I doubt very much whether that would be a violation under a compensable taking under the Fifth Amendment.
You familiar with Sheets v. County of El Dorado?
No, I'm not. That is not something that I've encountered in my practice.
The Supreme Court struck down a $23,420 fee for a permit to build a home.
I was not familiar with that precedent, Senator. I'll make sure.
At some point, local government, which has wide discretion when exercising its police power, at some point, their actions can step over the line, can they not?
That is true, Senator. And
violate what? The takings clause?
In this case, I'm not familiar with if Sheets was based upon the Fifth Amendment or if there was some other analysis, but
It was Fifth Amendment.
okay.
Y'all hungry? I am.
Yes, Senator.
Okay. All right, gentlemen, thank you. Thanks to all the nominees today. Written questions for the record may be submitted until August 6th at 5 o'clock. We would ask you to respond promptly. This hearing is adjourned.